Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar with Medigrowth. My name is Emily. I'm the Senior Campaign Lead here at Birchal. And just before I introduce you to Todd and Adam, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're coming to you from today. Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. As I mentioned today, I'm joined by Todd and Adam from Medigrowth. Birchal's working with them on their upcoming crowdsourced funding offer, which will be their second with Birchal. So a few of you might be a little bit unfamiliar with what crowdsourced funding or CSF is, or you might know it as equity crowdfunding, but essentially it is a new form of fundraising here in Australia that allows startups and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, as well as wholesale and sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as banks or venture capitalists, countries can turn to the general public, and often that's their communities, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. Birchal Financial Services will be the licensed intermediary for Medigrowth's offer this year, and I would like to remind everybody who is here today that the information and discussion in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial advice or a recommendation to invest. So please do your own research and always consider the offer document and general CSF risk warning before investing. If you do need any more information, just head over to birchal.com. And if you've got any specific questions, email us at support@birchal.com. Now, how today's session is going to run, I'll hand it over to the team at Medigrowth, who will take us through a great presentation, which will be around about 15 to 20 minutes, all about Medigrowth, where they've come from, what they're looking to achieve with this capital raise, and then we'll switch to a Q&A session. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little Q&A bubble. So if you've got any questions during the presentation, just pop them in there and we'll get to them after the presentation. We're also recording today's session, so if you do need to jump off early or if you'd like to send it to a friend who you think might be interested in the offer, we'll send around a copy. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Adam and Todd.
Thanks very much, Emily. Great to be here. Very excited to chat all things Medigrowth and medicinal cannabis, and walk you through just a little snapshot of what we do here on a day-to-day and a year-to-year basis with Medigrowth. Medigrowth itself, we're a medicinal cannabis biotech. So we've been involved in the industry now for some years. We're not a brand new player in the industry. We're actually established right back in 2017 and have had a number of iterations through our journey, evolving through the cannabis industry here in Australia as the industry has evolved. And really our purpose is all about generating world-class research to ultimately lead to the registration of cannabis-based medicines. So for us, that's very important to continue our journey on supplementing our day-to-day operations with some research that ultimately translates to not only commercial opportunity, but also to patient equity and for great outcomes for patients as well. We're really aligning all of our endeavours, all of our collaborations and partnerships on that next-gen plant medicine, translating research and combining that with digital health opportunities, which I think is very much an opportunity for us and the broader health community. A little introduction on us. I'll say g'day firstly. So as Emily introduced us, I'm Adam Guskic. I'm one of the co-founders along with Todd, running as the CEO of Medigrowth. We've been in the journey in the industry now since, as I said, 2017. So I've really been fully focused on our mission right from very early days in the industry here in Australia. And we've seen a great progression in the industry, an equally incredible progression, building a company really from the ground up. And for me personally, extremely energised every day to be continuing to drive that mission on what can we achieve, how can we achieve great outcomes for patients and for shareholders. Over to you, Todd.
Hi there, Todd McClellan, Managing Director here at Medigrowth. As Adam said, we've been in the industry since 2017. So with 7 years under our belt in pushing forward and seeing everything from patient growth to our own company growth, including products, research and development, and now the people who are going to help us take us to higher levels. we're very excited to share this Birchal opportunity. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Todd. And why is everyone here today? I think there's two key questions here. I think we've had a number of conversations with existing investors and potential new investors over the last couple of weeks that are leading up into this expressions of interest campaign. And ultimately, I think everybody is here for an investment opportunity, but equally, I think many people are here to look at how they can grow with a company who's looking to do good things and achieve great things within a healthcare market that has a lot of challenges. So for us, we're looking at the global market opportunities in where we sit in our supply chain area at Medigrowth, and it is a huge global opportunity. We've got great opportunities in Australia currently in the unregistered medicine space, in which we're servicing patients every day with our current product portfolio. But I think the bigger picture certainly falls into what can we achieve globally as we grow as a business and tap into this multi-billion, $100+ billion industry that is really there for the taking, with very few companies focused on the translational research side of cannabis medicine. So for us, we believe that really differentiates us to many other players in the space at the moment. For us as a company, alongside a growing industry, I think there's two factors here. The old adage of a rising tide floats all boats. We're in an industry that is growing very rapidly at the moment. So authorised prescribers from inception only a few short years ago, 14,000% jump. I think there's over 3,000 plus authorised prescribers in the country now. 1.7 million plus patient treatments initiated by those authorised prescribers, and a huge range of indications. I think that's the real opportunity for companies like us and other players in the cannabis medicine space, is that really there's a host of indications that can be targeted. The leading indications under the SASB data are for chronic pain, anxiety, sleep disorders, and that's just to name a few. And we know for a fact that there are patients across a wide segment of different indications that are utilising cannabis medicines because existing treatments have failed them. And for us as a company, we continue to see a growth not only in the industry, but a growth in our own metrics. And certainly for the investors that were in back in 23 via the Birchal campaign, we've seen about 130+% jump in revenue since calendar year 23 into calendar year 24. So very, very strong commercial growth alongside very strong industry growth. Where do we end up in terms of a question I've been asked a few times? What is our business? So, how do we generate revenue? How do we generate IP? And really, that's broken down across two key pillars of our business. It's a very simple pillared structure where we have our pure play revenue generating side of the business, which is the sale of unregistered medicines, a product portfolio now of 12 products in market, and then the IP generation side of the business. And the IP generation side is focused really on a very strong collaboration with Australian universities and government organisations. Namely, here in Victoria, Deakin University, we've been working very, very closely with for some years now across originally agricultural plant science initiatives in a co-located greenhouse, moved into the medical faculty, and now working on two key projects with the university on a randomised controlled trial on autism spectrum disorder that was completed, or results were completed in the phase 1/2 of that trial last year, observational trials, and a very strong partnership and collaboration with an ARC training centre that, again, is really designed to drive product development opportunities in our space. Lastly there, and we'll come to that a little bit later, but a fully Office of Drug Control licensed, planning approved and co-located with university research, manufacturing and R&D centre, the Medigrowth Centre of Excellence. Just a quick synopsis on the business and revenue model. It's really a very simple explanation in terms of the way the medicines are dispensed here in Australia. They are prescribed by healthcare professionals, dispensed at pharmacy level, no different to any other prescription medicine. And that goes out to patients at the end of the day through a multitude of channels, but really prescribing GPs, specialists, nurse practitioners, and often through digital telehealth initiatives as well. And Haiku Health is our internal telehealth program that continues to connect patients with authorised prescribers of medicinal cannabis and those with the requisite knowledge to inform and counsel patients who have been underserved by their existing treatments. Taking a moment to really reflect on what we've done since 2023, because we know that there are a lot of existing investors who are very interested in coming back on board for another investment with Medigrowth. So I think it's important for everyone here today to look at really what we set out to achieve in 2023 when we raised funds and what we have achieved. And I think Todd and I can both very proudly say we've achieved everything that we set out to do. And not only that, we've added some additional projects that we believe will drive revenue into the business and add value for shareholders. So without sort of delving too deep into all of the objectives, really a high-level overview, a big expansion in terms of our direct distribution capability. We've got a walk-in distribution and vault capacity in our Melbourne-based headquarters. We've added a fantastic array of team members nationally. We've got people now in Melbourne, Sydney, and soon to be Adelaide. So people all across the country looking after sales, medical affairs, quality and regulations, digital work, and a newly appointed veterinary COO to look after one of the new projects that we've put into place in the veterinary space. As discussed earlier, products, 12 products now in market, which is a huge testament to, over the course of a year, to successfully launch 12 products across multiple categories and have those well supported by market has been a huge amount of work. And again, we're very proud to have delivered on that. Ongoing R&D with our multitude of research projects. We've established a UK trading entity with plans to export products over the course of this year. And in turn have listed all those products on the ARTG for export. The veterinary division is one of those key new products that we believe is very exciting moving into 2025, really aligning with what we're doing in the human space and looking at providing CBD for veterinary sales, a huge market that's relatively untapped here and globally. The ongoing work with the Centre of Excellence, and we've recently established a community initiative for compassionate supply initiatives, just to ensure that as we grow as a company, we continue to recognise that as a business, we need to remind ourselves that we're serving patients. And I think that's very important to combine those worlds to build the community to ensure that everybody understands Medigrowth is on a mission to do great things and commercialise its products. But I think those things can still work in synergy. The product portfolio. So as we've said, 12 products in market, really segmented across medicinal cannabis oils, dried flower, pastilles, distillate cartridges, serving a multitude of patients and a multitude of prescribing scenarios. Huge amount of energy has gone into the right supply chain and logistics chains there to ensure that we are in consistent supply of our products. They're GMP products. We can stand by the quality, and we know that prescribers do respect what Medigrowth does if they're prescribing a Medigrowth product. Haiku Health, again, existing shareholders would recall in 2023, it was a very new venture. So we've had about 18 months of running a telehealth platform, really to supplement revenue channels to serve patients. And I think everyone agrees that in the year 2025, telehealth really is the way of the future. So this is a 365-day-a-year operation. connecting patients with very well-trained authorised prescribers. And for us, in terms of where next with this, certainly some resources to go into driving the ability to connect both R&D and commercial operations will be one of the things that we're working on in the digital landscape here as well. So we continue to see great value in Haiku Health. Very briefly, just on the clinical trial side of things and the intellectual property being developed out of that. As I said earlier, the paediatric autism trial has been run in collaboration with Deakin University, utilising a Medigrowth product. We've seen huge uptake in terms of the patient interest in and registrations to that trial in the beginning, and have had a lot of positive response to looking to legitimise cannabis medicines in a patient cohort that often, not always, but often does struggle with day-to-day challenges. So for us, I think the very promising results that have been delivered out of that phase 1 and 2 trial continue to show that the research done at the right levels can continue to add value. And we're now in a funding application for the phase 3 element of that trial, really pushing that out to a multi-site national trial, 150 plus participants. And I think that really shows not only, one, the data has been very positive, but secondly, it just highlights the hunger from academia to continue working in this space. So we feel very privileged to be working with some amazing researchers across the university sector who are equally passionate about outcomes for patients. And again, for us, that's a great win, because there's a clear pathway to great patient outcomes, and there's a clear pathway to commercialisation as we continue to see great results coming forward. Todd's been the lead on our work with the Uni of WA on the ARC Training Centre, so I'll leave it to you to have a chat on that, Todd.
Thanks, Adam. Yes, the ARC Training Centre based over at the University of WA is really, I guess, the bench to randomised controlled trial channels that Deakin has, for instance, what Deakin has done with the autism trial. Deakin has had the ability to collect a patient cohort who are interested in taking part in these trials. So the ARC Training Centre is really the foundational place where work is done on a cellular level, right up to an RNA sequencing level, and recognizing that dual targeted formulations is really what Medigrowth wants to be able to achieve in that pursuit of registered medicines. So the on the slide there, it shows the host of caliber and high class industry involvement, as well as government bodies and university. And we're really wrapped with the team over there. There is 4 PhDs working on a couple of different projects that all really integrates and ties in. And what we're trying to achieve with that is really get the empirical data from the benchtop cellular level that we can then create these unique formulations for Medigrowth that can go into randomized controlled trials and patient cohorts where there may be therapeutic benefit, and certainly something where Deakin and their team of experts can help us along the way. Next slide. So our professional advisory board there, talking of University WA, Dr. Nick Taylor and Iyer, they're both the leads over there, as well as the PhDs being Ewan, Kavi, Kai, Rowena, a host of people who really make it go over there. On the Deakin front, Peter Endicott has been a very great person to work with since inception of the idea of the autism trial, and we have great support for Deakin, and in turn Deakin, we believe, has had great support for us. Dimitri Ozima, he's a lawyer who we catch up with both on a personal and a business level, and Dr. Colin Barrow, who's there at Deakin as well, working on multiple projects, including extraction, so very helpful on our journey forward. The indications in market size, when we look at cannabinoid medicine from a registered perspective, the opportunities around ASD, cachexia, and mental health are pretty monumental. If we look straight at ASD, as we've been sort of focusing on for the last couple of years, the therapeutics that are offered to these children are generally offered to adults and potentially can have some side effects and non-therapeutic results as well. So identifying that size of the market for one, but additionally, I think the quality of life and societally, the ability to really help families and patients along the way is important to us. That cachexia, basically anyone who ends up with cancer along the way will have 80% chance of finding themselves with this symptom. There's currently very little that can be done on a therapeutic side, so there's certainly opportunity from the cannabinoid medicine space. And obviously the mental health, the annual prescription size in Australia alone, nearing the $700 million mark, that's outside of cannabis. So the opportunity there is huge, and globally, I think it can't be argued that there is an opportunity to do better, and we certainly want to participate in that space and offer those other options outside of what's reasonably offered now. Next slide. So we work in a pretty highly regulated space, as one could imagine. Medicinal cannabis and falling under the umbrella of pharmaceutical means that there is reporting, licensing, compliance, and the regulatory. So we have been working amongst many of those bodies now for a number of years. Also on this slide, it shows the host of universities who are putting their focus towards research and open to having cannabinoid practice looked at on the research side. This is the opportunity we feel. There's been 100 years of prohibition that has really not allowed that previously in other countries where cannabis is being explored recreationally, and we feel that's the differentiator. Also, the state governments and bodies, as well as the research like CSIRO, who are involved in the ARC Training Center, I think that that we see the definite benefit to doing the IP generation piece, and in turn that will be translational and commercial opportunity.
I can jump in and have a quick chat about Kindred. As I mentioned early in the presentation, one of our new projects, and very new, only really launched as a soft launch into 2025, really looking to strategically align existing Medigrowth operations to a different target audience, and that target audience being pet owners, pet parents, and veterinarians on CBD applications and CBD sales in the veterinary space. So for us, it's been a relatively simple extension in terms of having all of the existing company infrastructure in place, all of the compliance and all of the requisite knowledge really to push forward into a revenue channel that we believe offers immense opportunity, working strategically alongside our Medigrowth human endeavours. And if you look globally, there is an immense opportunity. A couple of the stats there that were very surprising in our early research. In North America, in the States, 65% of pet owners utilising CBD for their animals at some stage. And interestingly, very much aligned to often the same issues and indications within a human market as well. So a lot of CBD prescribed for anxiety, for example, joint and mobility issues, inflammation issues. So a direct connection. And if you have a look at that huge number down the bottom, that Bloomberg intelligence report suggesting a $500 billion global pet industry over the coming years. That's across all sectors of the pet industry. But there's a significant contribution to healthcare within the pet industry because, again, no different to the human landscape. Pets are living longer because of the technology. There's an increasing humanisation of pets where pets are very much part of the family and having money spent on them in areas that traditionally weren't spent. So for us, that's a very exciting opportunity. We've got a whole host of works in progress, and very excited to see where Kindred launches over the course of this year, and building our persona really as a key extension of Medigrowth, but Kindred as a standalone brand, because really in Australia, there are very few that are owning that sector of the cannabis market, and we believe Kindred can be the brand that people recognise as the CBD brand for pets. We wanted to touch base on our licensing updates because there has been interest in psilocybin and the MDMA licensing updates that were instrumented last year as part of our warehousing upgrades. So a host of upgrades were done in the warehouse in terms of just working through our, I guess, the extension of a whole host of additional products coming on board, so bulk products and finished products. The psilocybin and MDMA licensing was an amendment to the Victorian Department of Health licensing, so we are now fully licensed for Schedule 4, 8 and 9 medicinal cannabis products, psilocybin and MDMA. And we added those because of our ongoing interest in mental health disorders. So MDMA is legislated for treatment of PTSD, and psilocybin for depression, both areas of significant interest in the cannabis landscape, and certainly indications that are being well catered for across a number of prescribers and certain patient cohorts that are obviously suffering from some of these conditions, often receiving less than ideal treatment that aren't really resolving their issues. So I think looking at opportunities for us moving forward, aligned again to very much what we're doing, there is a great degree of interest in how we can integrate some of those things into our research pipeline moving forward. Again, for those who weren't here back in 2023, just a quick rundown on the Medigrowth Centre of Excellence. So as part of our existing arrangement with Deakin, we have a 9,000 square metre parcel of land that's been approved as a co-located Medigrowth Centre of Excellence, approved by Geelong City Council for town planning. And really that's been designed as a manufacturing and R&D centre of excellence, really a conduit for commercial operations alongside continued R&D and product development, and as an extension to ensure that that ongoing connectivity to university and government is part of our long-term strategic plan. So that remains a work in progress. It's currently a greenfield site, but for us a very important part of the long-term puzzle that we believe energy should still be continued to be put into as we progress, and does give us opportunities for potential alignment and strategic alignment with other companies as well. So that continues to be a work in progress, and very well positioned in terms of a advanced sort of ag bio precinct within a top tier Australian university, and in fact only just down the road from our existing research site that's had some use previously. Again, many folks here are probably wondering, once the offer doc comes out, where the funds will be deployed. And if I can just refresh the memory on the deployment of capital first time around had been executed really from beginning to end, and we're looking to do the same this time around. I think really for us, the second raise with Birchal is not a must do, it's a should do, because we're really looking to ensure that we have adequate capital resources around us to continue to grow. We want to ensure that every opportunity is catered for, every stone is unturned as we look to grow in this industry, and it's a very exciting and fast-paced industry, and we want to ensure that we've got the requisite capital around us to continue moving and continue to grow. So really those three key points, the working capital, the research, and tied into the research, some trial product expansion, which is really all about not level product development, again, for longer term IP generation and differentiation to many players in the market. So I guess I've semi-answered the why the equity crowdfunding. There's a degree also, and again, it's testament to, I think, the belief in Medigrowth, that we've got so many of our existing investors that are here today that we've spoken to over the last couple of weeks, that there is a trust in what we're doing, and I think I can humbly say that we're highly trusted within our investor network, but also within our professional network here in Australia in the cannabis industry, to be doing the right thing for both patients, but also ultimately for shareholders as well. So for us, we are reiterating that we're here to build a genuine Aussie success story together collectively. So thank you for everyone that's joined here today, and we look forward to having a chat on a less monologue form with some Q&A. And if I can just finally say, on the building together as a community, for those investors that are either with us currently or planning to be with us, if you like the opportunity and if you believe in the story, please share it with your friends and family and network, because I think growing together and having that community around us is very important. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks so much. That was absolutely fantastic. Could I ask that we stop sharing your screen so we can see your lovely faces? Perfect. Thank you. So, funnily enough, the first three questions are all really similar. So, they are basically centered around what the key differentiators are from Medigrowth versus your competitors in the market.
Yep. Look, I think it's very much that dual pillar approach. Again, we've had this conversation, haven't we, Todd, with a lot of the expressions of interest that have come in, that have reached out to have a chat. There's so many supply chain angles in the medicinal cannabis industry, and I think it's important that we don't lump all of them in together. So within an Australian context, there are those that are manufacturing products, that are those that are cultivating products, for example. There's pure play, product suppliers working with distributors, and everything in between. And I think for us, we're quite unique in the sense that we are that dual pillar of having a great reputation for product supply, very well respected, but there are very few others really with that research focus that's duly aligned to the product portfolio and unregistered medicine space. And in fact, Ashley, our national medical lead up in Sydney, joined Medigrowth, coming from a major global cannabis company, for the fact that they had moved away from an R&D focus in their business to join Medigrowth because of our respected research focus. And I think for us personally, that's where we actually see the greatest opportunity in the mid to long term in this industry.
Thank you so much.
And if I can just jump in and add there, sometimes there is a view of IP or research and development as being not beneficial to the commercial aspect of a business. I just really want to reiterate that pushing forward with this R&D and being able to potentially register cannabinoid medicines with the TGA, this will lower the bar and improve access to those people who are unable to participate at the moment with the user pays system. So just wanted to sort of reiterate that research is a good thing. It takes a little bit of time, but there will be commercial opportunities that come out of that.
And it's just prompted another quick thought bubble from my side as well. I was having a meeting earlier today in regards to the Department of Veterans Affairs, for example. So some of these government agencies that are, whether it's a PBS subsidisation or the DVA that's subsidising medicines for veterans, they're only doing it with the requisite clinical evidence to support it. So I think those companies that are drilling down on that opportunity are those that can, I guess, look at some of those angles that are currently underserved.
Brilliant. Thank you. This isn't a question, but more of a testimonial. So one of the listeners has previously had chronic back pain and still suffers from it, and was on opiates, which were not great for his body. He was bedridden and had put on 55 kilos and couldn't do much at all, but he reluctantly started medicinal cannabis, cartridges and oil. And in 2 years, he's lost the 50 kilos. He's much fitter and healthier, and although still in pain, can do so much more because of it, and believes it's really saved and changed his life. He's now recommending medicinal cannabis to everybody suffering from pain, especially chronic pain, especially because it doesn't come with horrible side effects and won't slowly kill your body. It's lovely to hear.
It is, and it's something that we hear, almost on a daily, if not certainly a weekly basis. We have some engagement at a patient level or from a prescriber level, passing on patient case studies, where we hear it very regularly, and that's that anecdotal evidence that we in the industry know, and many patients that are on medicinal cannabis are the leading voice in why it should be more widespread. But again, there's a need to be driving that broader mainstream medicine and educating and encouraging education within those sectors as well.
Absolutely. So in the future, do you expect there to be a relaxation in the regulation of cannabis in Australia? And do you think CBD oil will ever become available over the counter given the benefits and little risks?
I think, the regulations are evolving constantly. So we've had, a number of sort of iterations of small changes from original legalisation here in Australia. There's a lot of rallying and lobbying for legislative change across a number of different reasonings in our industry. One of the big ones is driving. So Victoria has a legislative draft in for changes to the driving laws that I think would be very, very positive for our industry if it starts in Victoria. I can imagine that would roll out then to other states as well. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it will evolve, and I think companies like us that are already in the opportunity and working very closely, within a specific industry are quickly ready to adapt to a changing landscape as well.
And just touching on the OTC piece for CBD, I think the requirements for data packs and support for over-the-counter product, I think it really ties into those clinical trial side for a more registered medicine-based product with CBD. So I think the OTC opportunity is quite heavily burdened in what's required for supply to get that product to market. And with that, I believe, given that Australia is one of the only places that requires that for CBD, that many companies are foregoing that opportunity to either A, play in the pure play SASB or AP space, or B, do clinical trials looking at registering medicines with the TGA that are not OTC.
Awesome, thank you. So currently, how do you change your products to fit within the vet space? And have you seen a change in mindset from doctors and vets since 2017?
So the product itself for vets is very aligned to our existing product range. So CBD isolates in that case can be utilised in the veterinary space. The regulations are for under 2% of other cannabinoids. So from a supply perspective, we're very comfortable with the fact that that's easily transitioned into the business. And the 2017 or 2016 regulations to now, a huge difference in attitude and broad stigma in our industry. I think we're seeing, what I would call very conservative doctors who are actively prescribing medicinal cannabis now because they've seen the benefits. From a Medigrowth perspective, we're speaking to paediatricians, for example, based on some of the clinical research that we've done, that back in 2016, I don't think you would have even had a chance to get a meeting with a paediatrician to speak about medicinal cannabis for children, whereas now, there are gold standard clinical trials where most paediatricians would agree, well, it's surmising, but certainly many paediatricians are supportive, knowing that epilepsy, for example, is a indication that is well catered for by medicinal cannabis. There's research and works like ours on autism that has a lot of paediatricians looking at how that can be put into their clinical practice. So absolutely changing landscape. And likewise with the vet space, I think we're at that precipice in the veterinary industry now, which is not dissimilar to 2017 in Australia in the human space. An interest in the market, but not many players really looking at how they can best serve the education of those vets. So we expect that over the next 5 years or so, it will be very commonplace for vets to be prescribing cannabis or CBD as part of their general toolkit. And in fact, only a few days ago, we had a meeting with a vet who said that she's actively prescribing CBD in her clinical practice, primarily for anxiety, but also for multimodal treatments where she's really just looking at a host of, often these pets are on a host of medications and looking to reduce the number of medications and really have CBD working in conjunction with some of those other meds as well.
Great, thank you. What, if any, chemicals are used in your fertilizer?
That's a very good question. And so just to be clear, we don't cultivate directly under the Medigrowth banner. So we have partnered with a number of Australian and global supply chain partners for all of our products. And that's something we'd have to probably have a chat to the cultivation partner. But what I can say is that a lot of time and energy went into vendor qualification to ensure that all of those partners have been met with the right quality control specs in terms of the way they operate. So I know it doesn't answer the question, but it's to be continued to get the exact list.
Do you have any plans to look into, I might mispronounce this, so apologies if I do, ibogaine?
Ibogaine is one of the psychedelics that North America has been, I guess, doing a little bit of research on. It does fall outside of the scope of the MDMA and psilocybin here in Australia with the TGA. That said, I think that the TGA has been very open-minded in adding these substances for specific indications. And I would say that we would be guided by the regulations to what we can pursue in the R&D space. But certainly we have a network of researchers who have been working in North America around this previously. And it certainly, if it was to open up from the TGA side, it could potentially be something we would look at.
I think that's a good segue to lead into another question. At this point, do you think there's a timeline for psilocybin and MDMA to hit the market?
Broadly speaking, or from a Medigrowth supply chain?
I mean, perhaps let's go a little bit of column A, a bit of column B. That's as much of the question as I received.
Sure. So we did spend some time last year really investigating supply chain, investigating how we could implement psilocybin, particularly psilocybin treatments into our regime here. We're not there yet in terms of having supply of the product here for prescription. I think it's not the worst thing because I think the market is still very nascent in Australia and obviously very tightly regulated. So there are certain practitioners from a psychiatrist level that are prescribing psilocybin and being dispensed at pharmacy level, but still in relatively small numbers, in very small numbers in terms of authorised prescribers and a patient base that still needs some time to mature. So for us, it's just, I guess, the opportunity to look at how we can integrate that over the course of this year. And when the opportunity is there and the time is right, I think we'll have all of the requisite sort of channels ready to go.
Awesome, thank you. What is the status, if any, of your products being placed on the PBS?
Work in progress. I think certainly that's a goal of ours. Would be a wonderful goal to have for all of the products. The product that's most likely for that to have the opportunity for is the product that's been in the clinical trial with Deakin. So We're now through a phase 1/2 trial with some very positive data. The phase 3 trial is really the end of the road on the clinical side of the investigation of that product to ensure it's safe and efficacious. If we get that data, which we believe, we're in a good position to continue having positive results given the existing data, then the follow-up phase is really then looking at registration of those medicines and into the PBS. So it is a journey, but it's certainly something that we're very focused on.
One of our attendees uses Green Heart and Dispense Direct. Would a client be able to ask specifically for Medigrowth products? And why do a lot of practitioners often suggest products that are not from Australia?
Ultimately, the prescribing decisions are made between prescriber and patient. And that can be for a number of reasons. Obviously, it can be based on, very much based on prescriber practicalities of what they believe is in the best interest of the patient. But equally, there are patients that have had previous experience with certain products or certain dose forms, certain strains, for example, that can be discussed with the doctor, and that may influence a prescribing decision. So I think that is definitely something really at a patient-doctor level to be discerned. And from the overseas side, I think the reality is that the Australian market has been built from nothing only in 2016, and I mean that's really when the regulations or legislation changed. But it's a multi-year process for most Australian companies to go from a zero start to being licensed by the ODC, to building out cultivation or manufacturing facilities. So we're only really seeing in the last couple of years some of those companies being in a fully commercialised operation and able to supply. So there's been a little bit of a slow start to the Aussie awareness of brands and capabilities, but I think that's changing. And as that changes and as those capabilities increase, I think you'll see more Aussie products in the market.
Absolutely. So we've had a couple of people ask what the minimum amount to invest is when your offer does open. Do you have a minimum amount yet?
We certainly wanted to keep it achievable for everyday Aussies. So the minimum amount that we're setting is $250. And as you would know, Emily, but for the investors out there, really the retail level is up to $10,000 for retail investors. So a minimum of $250 up to $10,000, and then over $10,000 becomes a wholesale investment that we can certainly discuss with those with an interest at wholesale level.
Right. There's been a few questions on your financials about profitability, annual turnover. Just for anybody who does want to go into the full financials, that will be available next week when the offer does go live. It'll be fully disclosed in the offer document, so you can read all about it then. If you haven't expressed interest in the campaign yet, and you do want to be kept informed of when the offer will be open, I'll pop the link in the chat box so that you can register your interest, so you're the first to know and you're the first to be able to read the offer document as well. So at this stage, will you be doing any research for the benefits of the medicine for patients with cancer and Parkinson's disease, as well as the other things that you're already researching?
Parkinson's we haven't explored. So I know it is medicinal cannabis is prescribed commonly for Parkinson's and a lot of movement disorders. In terms of active research, it's not something we've actively explored. But again, from a medical affairs sort of position, now that we have that skill set on board, there's a host of projects and I guess research opportunities that we're really looking at. What's the next steps for Medigrowth? Really, the key defined areas that we are sort of immediately interested in is to continue the autism trial because we are obviously down a pathway there, and we do see great opportunity. Certainly, the mental health arena is very much of interest because it has such an alignment to what we're doing and what we're seeing anecdotally and via the current prescribing pathways. And on the cancer side, certainly there is an interest to continue. We have done some pre-works on protocol development for advanced oncology care, and that's something that we will continue to look at. But to be upfront, it's not something that we're actively working on currently. So very much a focus on the ASD, but over the course of time, those three key areas are of interest to us to explore.
Awesome, thank you. Well, speaking of the research you're looking to explore, are you looking at expanding into psychedelics for treatment of PTSD or other mental health issues such as psilocybin and MDMA? And will you be involved in those kinds of clinical trials? And if so, will you be looking for volunteers?
There's a huge amount of interest in the research on the psychedelic side. So we did spend quite some considerable time over the course of last year speaking to, there's a number of organisations here in Australia. Monash is one of the leaders in terms of the psychedelic research here in Australia, and quite surprising how much research is being done in that arena. So absolutely there is interest to continue to see how that might fall into that mental health arena that we see great opportunity moving forward on. So it's really a watch this space on that one as well. There's I think for us, they're really segmenting the future opportunities and projects whilst staying very focused on what we're currently achieving and sort of very focused on. And that is that two-pillared approach where there is a strong focus on revenue generation over the course of this year, having launched 12 products. We're really invested in achieving strong company revenue growth. I think that will only help, broadly speaking, everyone invested in the company, as well as some of those longer-term projects to supplement in the background.
Brilliant, thank you. So there's been some feedback that the CBD oil can be a little bit expensive for some people, and a lot of people have stopped using it because it is too expensive. Are there any plans to reduce the price point?
The market's rapidly changing. I think, when we look from inception, there's been a huge market sort of price compression across all dose forms. So CBD, even from a Medigrowth perspective, is a vastly different sort of to patient price than it was when we first launched the product, about a third of the price, certainly half the price it was back in launch date. Recognising as a privately funded medicine, whichever company is dispensing the medicine, it still can be prohibitive for patients, particularly those patients that are on higher doses, and that we've sort of found that falls into certainly on the epilepsy side with CBD, on autism. Often a lot of those kids are on quite high doses to manage certain symptoms. So in that case, we've looked at having a very sensible price point, broadly speaking, in the market. But as we suggested earlier in the presentation, we have also actioned a compassionate access program that allows for under 18 people, patients, a subsidised sort of medicine category, and also for concession and healthcare card holders. So we're certainly trying to support where we can, recognising that there has to be a balance between keeping all of our shareholders happy on continued company growth, but certainly putting out patient landscape that we are endeavouring to ensure that we're doing our best on that front as well.
Is there anywhere that people can access the prices for your products?
Technically, that's a pharmacy. It's a pharmacy level pricing schedule. So, yeah, under the TGA advertising guidelines, unfortunately, we're not in a position to advertise our products and pricing. But certainly, at a prescriber level, that conversation is normally had with patients during the consult, just to ensure that there's, I guess, an understanding of the cost of the products. And of course, that could be asked at a pharmacy level as well prior to purchasing.
Thank you. So somebody has asked, apart from the investment amount, what is the difference between a retail and wholesale investor? Essentially, somebody who is eligible to get a wholesale investor certificate from their accountant is somebody who has at least $2.5 million in net assets, or who can prove that over the last 2 financial years they have earned at least $250,000 per year. So to get a wholesale investor certificate, you will need to go to your accountant with that evidence to be able to invest over $10,000. I hope that makes sense. So one of our attendees have seen it in America. Some companies have been losing their businesses growing and supplying medicinal marijuana to the public. How long do you think it would take before Australia might follow suit, or do you think that we would not end up following suit in this instance?
So just clarity on the question there in terms of bankruptcy businesses, do you mean, or I just missed the beginning of the question there?
It doesn't specify, but if you could, if the question could be maybe re-asked, that would be great so that we can understand a little bit more context around it.
Sure.
So I've had a question. I'm wondering if there is a way to get involved in SA. I'm assuming that means South Australia, but also not too sure.
Look, if certainly from a national perspective, where the industry itself is fully legislated for across the country, so medicinal cannabis can be prescribed right across the country in any state and territory. Marginally different intricacies to certain state health licensing laws and legislation, but as a general rule, certainly there's no issues whatsoever for anyone to prescribe if they're a GP or specialist or nurse practitioner in any state and territory, if that was the question. Beyond that, look, there are a lot of opportunities if it's more involvement from a company standpoint. There's a lot of opportunities across the country with not only with Medigrowth. I mean, we're a growing company and looking to grow the team, but there are, it seems to be a burgeoning industry where there are a lot of opportunities across the supply chain, from cultivation specialists through to those that are working at the highest levels of quality assurance and everything in between.
Thank you. So there's been a couple of questions around long-term goals for the business in terms of exit opportunities as well as return on investment for investors. So just to explain that when you do make an investment under the crowdsourced funding regime in Australia, you should consider this as a medium to long-term investment. So the shares that you are purchasing are in unlisted companies. So these are considered illiquid as they're not traded on a public exchange like the ASX. So you might not be able to easily transfer the shares or sell them when you want to. A lot of these companies that do crowdsourced funding offers are relatively early stage or rapidly growing ventures. So they've got a lot of years of hard work ahead of them in order to grow the business and execute on their potential exit strategy. So you might be able to make a return on your investment if the company does undertake an IPO or list on a securities exchange. If they undertake an exit event like a sale of the company, if you transfer your shares to a third party and the share price is agreed with them, or if the company undertakes a share buyback scheme where they might purchase your shares off you for an agreed price later down the track. There's a whole heap of ways that you can get a return on your investment, but the team at Medigrowth are really great at communicating with their investors and keeping them abreast of any updates with the company and any financial updates that are coming up in the future as well. So if you do invest, you can rest assured that they'll always be in communication with you and keep you up to date with what's going on. We have run out of time now. We've come to the end of our session, but we got through all of our questions, which is awesome. So thank you everybody for your super in-depth questions. They were brilliant. If you do think of any questions now that you haven't asked the team, you can always ask them through the message button on their profile. The profile link is in the chat. So please ensure you have registered your interest so you're the first to know when the offer does go live so you can actually invest. And thank you so much, Adam and Tom, for your time today and for your brilliant presentation. It was great to see you again and to see everything that you've achieved since your last raise and what you're looking to achieve with the next one.
Thanks so much, Emily. It's been great to chat, and certainly looking forward to having a continued sort of success from a company standpoint, and sharing that success with investors as we grow.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for everyone who came along.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.